Cavuto, and we're going to talk about this, bringing in Matt Schlapp, Stephen Murphy, and Shelby Holliday. Matt, you know, a lot of people were really surprised that ultimately maybe Bernie Sanders was going to come into the fold, but you know, he's done it somewhat quicker than he had been advertising, although it took him a lot longer than Hillary went behind, you know, to get behind Barack Obama. What do you make of this, and how do you think his supporters are going to react?
You know, if you look at the polls, Charles, his supporters are just not enamored with Hillary Clinton, especially if you look at the pockets where he was really strong, like young voters or millennials. Two polls have come out that show that 50% of those voters just don't really want to support Hillary Clinton. 72% in a recent poll of millennial supporters said Hillary Clinton's not honest or trustworthy. So she has big issues. Actually, as a Republican watching this today, and you see Sanders against Clinton standing up there on the stage, you can see why Sanders is a lot more appealing, and it just almost shows that Hillary Clinton is a very weak candidate.
You know, Stephen, as a Democratic strategist, you point out that historically these things happen. A lot of Hillary Clinton supporters said they wouldn't back Barack Obama, but she gave up a lot. Barack Obama didn't give up a lot. She has given up virtually the entire Democratic platform to get this endorsement.
Well, understand one thing here about what's going on in the election. Hillary Clinton is winning a significantly higher percentage of Democrats already than Donald Trump is of Republicans. So whereas there may be some dissatisfaction among some Sanders voters about Hillary being the nominee, they're already for Hillary Clinton. And in terms of the way the race goes forward now, the notion that there's some type of shift to the left, these issues that Bernie Sanders is talking about, issues like a $15 minimum wage and trade deals that benefit the American workers. Heck, Donald Trump is for that. Now, there's no shift to the left going
on. The irony.
This is where the American voters are today.
Here's the irony. Sanders didn't get what he wanted on trade, but he did get the student debt. He did get the free college. He did get the minimum wage. And these are things that are not in Hillary's wheelhouse. This is not why Wall Street has put millions of dollars behind Hillary Clinton. So she's going to have some issues with respect to some of her core donors. But Shelby, we're talking about millennials here because this is where Bernie Sanders either will or will not deliver. Polling-wise, Hillary does very well in the polls, but the enthusiasm, will they actually show up to go vote for her? Right now, it's a huge question mark.
It's a huge question mark. The enthusiasm has not been there throughout the primaries. I do think what was really important about today is Bernie Sanders is painting Donald Trump as a villain. And if he can convince all of his millennial followers that they have a choice between a terrible president and Clinton, who maybe they're not excited about, but who Bernie says would do better for the country, they may actually go out and vote. And that's the big issue here for millennials, is whether or not they'll show up to the polls and can mobilize them if he presents that choice to them, if he excites them about some of the progressive platforms, not necessarily the candidate. I think a lot of them will actually stay tuned to the election and maybe go vote in November.
We're getting back to that old, that big question that I thought was answered before this election cycle. More people vote for someone they like rather than against someone they don't like. But, Matt, to Shelby's point, I thought when Bernie layered it on pretty thick about the Supreme Court, Citizens United, billionaires buying elections, you know, there's pressure on Republicans or Donald Trump to put more money into the election, defending women's rights to choose, defending the LGBT, defending workers against those greedy, unscrupulous, rich business people, defending minorities, defending the environment. These are all issues that he did differ in a large part with Donald Trump. Aside from trade, where they are almost simpatico, it sets up traps, I think, for Donald Trump in any of these areas between now and November to slip up and say something wrong in any of these things.
Yeah, no, there's no question. This is a good day for Hillary Clinton. This shows unity in the party. Charles, the one thing is I think is this is about as late as they possibly could stage this endorsement, because the RNC convention is already getting started and the Democratic convention is right after. And I think what we're going to see with Clinton is she is going to be able to lock down most Democrats because she is a traditional, she's what you expect if you're a Democratic voter. But Donald Trump is the big question mark. He's not always been a Republican. He's sometimes been a Democrat. He gave money to Hillary Clinton in the past. Does he put together some kind of new and different coalition, which includes appeal, which shows in poll after poll to some of these Bernie Sanders supporters who view Hillary Clinton as a tool of two towns, New York and Washington, D.C., Capitol Hill and Wall Street. That's what she's a tool of, and the fact that she's for all these big policy questions that the big banks and the big companies want. That new coalition together. That's what this election is about.
You know, Stephen, that's a fantastic point. Listen, the American public is tired of that incestuous relationship between that corridor between D.C. and Wall Street, where they just get rich, they make the laws for each other, and they all get rich again. And I think you're starting to see that with independents. In virtually every poll I've seen, Donald Trump has a lead among independents. The trustworthiness issue is not going to help Hillary with respect to that, and this big business establishment government type is not going to help her either.
You know, Donald Trump may have a small lead among independents. 4 years ago, Romney won independents handily and still lost the election because there are more Democrats than Republicans, and it's a disaster.
There are more registered independents, though, more recently. I mean, if you want to talk about
there's more independents than there are Republicans.
Well,
yes, that's true.
And that's one heck of a correlation, Shelby, because think about this for a moment. All the primaries that were open primaries, in other words, where you can vote for any candidate regardless of political registration, we saw Donald Trump win those huge, and we saw Bernie Sanders win those huge. That's why Michigan is up for grabs. That's why some of these other key swing states are up for grabs.
You're right, and it's all about the Rust Belt this year. That's where Donald Trump's looking for victories in November. And those are the areas where Hillary Clinton did not do well, in those states like Michigan, Wisconsin. That's what makes the VP choice so important. If Trump can pick a VP that helps him win that Rust Belt coalition of states, he has a shot at winning this election. And that's why this Hillary Clinton-Bernie Sanders event was so important. Sanders has to get those white working-class voters on board with Clinton if the Democrats want to beat Donald Trump and actually think that they can win by a landslide. They may not win by a landslide. There's a big question mark in this election.
All right, guys, let's leave it there for a moment, because the stock market might be the economic winds that the Democrats back, but Republicans not letting go of the Clinton email scandal. Attorney General Loretta Lynch facing questions from lawmakers right now. We heard this one earlier.
Have you not taken a close look at the work done by Director Comey, especially given the extreme national interest in this issue, to make a determination yourself whether you and those working for you agree or disagree with Director Comey?
As I've indicated, I received the recommendation of the team, and that team was composed of prosecutors and agents. It was a unanimous recommendation as to how to resolve the investigation and to what the information that they had received.
Do you agree with the conclusion?
And I accepted that recommendation. I saw no reason not to accept it. And again, I reiterate my pride and faith in their work.
Congressman Ron DeSantis stepped out, and he's got reaction to Lynch, who obviously was pretty evasive on some of those key questions there, sir.
Oh, absolutely, Charles. She's basically, I think, displaying contempt for the American people. She said she's not only not going to discuss the facts of the case or how she analyzed the case or even the underlying statutes that are at issue, because, you know, there's a question about whether gross negligence is enough. Director Comey suggested that you needed an intent to break the law in addition to gross negligence, even though that's not what the statute says. Lynch isn't even answering any of those questions. And so I think it's frustrating because this is an attorney general. She's willing to opine on things when she wants to. Remember, she said she was going to prosecute anti-Muslim speech. She said the Justice Department should look in bringing civil actions against so-called climate change deniers. And she said the most effective tool for fighting terrorism is love. So she'll talk when she wants to, but I think her silence today is really indicative of the fact that it's actually pretty hard to justify the decision that they made.
There's no doubt about that, and I think what she's done is she's fallen on her career sword. She's given it all up, a tremendous reputation before this whole thing happened, and that's the consequence. I guess she'll live with, a political consequence and a personal one. Now, she's also, it's just not James Comey, but she keeps referring to the team. Is there any way we can find out who she's talking about? Because it feels like these are some faceless bureaucrats who may or may not, we don't know. Is it possible that your committee or future committees can somehow drill down who else besides the FBI director took it upon themselves at the behest of the Attorney General to do her job?
It should be asked today. I think someone will, and I think you raise a great point because people in Washington say, oh, it's a career person, therefore they're apolitical. That's not necessarily the truth. You have people who are career Justice Department are politically active. We have people who've donated a lot of money to the Democratic Party who are high up in the Justice Department, and that's fine, and they have a right to do that, but the American people also should know who exactly were these prosecutors that were telling Comey that gross negligence isn't enough. I think it's an important question. I hope we get that answer today.
And before I let you go, sir, where do we go from here? Hillary Clinton aides, will we get a chance, at least the public, to hear from them? They had access to a lot of information. They were able to escape any sort of any sort of legal consequences, but it feels like throughout the testimony, it feels like they had such an amazing role that I would like to hear more from them as well.
Absolutely. So one thing, State Department IG reopened the investigation. I think that's with an eye towards stripping these aides of their security clearances since they were totally reckless with top secret information. And then the other shoe to drop is the referral from Congress about Hillary's Benghazi sworn testimony under oath and the conflicts between that testimony and Director Comey's findings. We're asking to investigate that case because they had not done it in their original case.
Representative DeSantis, thank you very much for taking the time out to speak with the audience. We appreciate it.
Happy to.
All right, I want to turn back to markets because the Dow Jones Industrial Average right now at the highs of the session and the highs all time, joining the S&P 500. Stocks are up big time. The more the market rallies, though, of course, it would seem the more it would benefit the Democrats in this November. Still with me, we've got Matt, Stephen, and Shelby. Shelby, you're with the Wall Street Journal. The stock market is supposed to be something of a proxy for the U.S. economy. It is absolutely soaring, even though a lot of people are – the irony here is a lot of people sold stocks going into this record high. But is this something that you think the Democrats will platform on, will campaign on?
The incumbent party always does better when the economy is strong, and the stock market for most voters is an indication of economic strength. That's where their retirement savings is. That's where their personal savings is. So, yes, the Democrats could definitely benefit, but keep in mind, we still have a few months before the election. We just saw Theresa May taking over in the UK, and Brexit is a big question mark hanging over the markets right now. So Democrats look poised to do well based on the economy, but a lot of things can change between now and November.
Matt, we've seen the Republican platform change somewhat under Donald Trump. Is it fair to say that there could be an attack on this rally that was similar to the old attacks that Democrats used to have on the market rally, saying, hey, that's an establishment proxy, that's big business, that's a handful of rich people and companies that send jobs overseas? And if that's the case, would it be a dangerous gambit to go down?
Look, I want to make a controversial statement here, Charles. I don't think the strength of the stock market is any longer the driving factor in a voter's mind as to whether the economy is strong. I think they view that as a function of the financial services industry, and I think Hillary Clinton is going to be their candidate. I think what's wrong with the psychology in the voters' mind is the fact that their housing values have been slumped. They're worried about the solid footing of their pensions. And look, for almost 2 decades, they have not seen economic opportunity. They have not seen their wages keep pace with inflation. That is what's going on in this economy.
Wages are up now, too.
Let me answer the question. The reason why Hillary Clinton is the candidate of Wall Street is because most of the big banks, most of the big Wall Street actors believe that she'll act in a way that we've seen over the last 20, 25 years. She'll act like her husband acted. I think they do worry that Donald Trump means what he says, that he's going to upset the order of things. And for the average American, that is incredibly appealing.
It's incredibly appealing, Stephen, if they see a benefit from him. If all of a sudden they wake up and there's factories in their backyard and their wages are going up. But I do find it also, again, intriguing that I've had Republican representatives in Congress tell me years ago when the market was rallying under George Bush that was nothing more than a proxy for the rich and it had nothing to do with Main Street. So you guys going to claim it this time around?
The market today has over 50% of Americans are in the stock market. Matt, pensions are in the stock market, and they're doing extremely well. the stock market is not necessarily a reflection of how everybody in the middle class is doing. And it is going to be very important for a candidate to be able to describe how they're going to create good-paying jobs. Donald Trump doesn't have any answer whatsoever about that. He just says, we're going to stop trading with everybody around the world. Hillary has put out plenty of policies,
Stephen, he's put out plenty of policies. We know it centers around trade and bringing jobs back. You can quibble about the details there, but let's just at least give him credit for putting up a framework. And we've got to leave it there, guys. The market is at an all. You guys are fantastic. Hope to get you all three back together again. In the meantime, I want to talk about Dallas. In morning still today, President Obama, he's en route there to try to ease tensions, while some say he's the one who's actually escalating those tensions. We're going to have more on that after this.
Fox Business is the fastest growing network in all of cable. More coverage, more analysis, more business. The numbers don't lie.